Hi, it's me, Brooks.
Hi, and this is me, Paul.
Welcome to Heal This. And we are going to do a rough moment with us together. We're actually in the same room sitting right next to each other. So hopefully that actually works. We're trying something new and we are not from this technological age, but I'm going to try and figure it out.
Yeah, you're doing great.
And
I'm just staying out of the way.
behind us is an empty wall. There used to be a fireplace there, and we had some issues, so we had to take down the entire fireplace and the wall. It has been reframed, and it is a new wall. And so it is going to be something different, and we don't know what it is yet. We're going to figure it out, but we thought we would podcast in front of it so you could see the progression of what will be coming soon. I don't know.
Yeah, we're piecing it all together.
Yeah.
One bite at a time. Just, we got maybe
It's a kind of a representation of the old stuff that we had to take down to now put something new up, right? And today we thought we would talk about a few points that have happened in our lives that have helped us be a stronger person ourselves and then strengthens our relationship. And so I'm going to start by telling the story. So shortly after I was divorced, I was living in a house with my 4 kids, and it was COVID. And I was standing at the kitchen sink and I was, doing dishes and everything. And I don't know about you, but that's very therapeutic for me. And I do a lot of thinking in that time, unless I'm listening to a podcast or something.
right.
And so I started having all of these thoughts, because I was like, I never wanted to be single. I never wanted to be struggling. I never wanted to be a single mom. I never wanted all that stuff. And I was blaming and I was getting really angry and I was putting it all on somebody else. And as I quieted myself and I was listening, I heard, you wanted this. You chose this. And I, of course, thought, well,
Yeah.
not exactly, but I did. And when I kind of sat with that for a little while, here are some things that happened for me. First of all, when I was in my previous marriage, there was a lot of conversations about, hey, we need to work on this. Hey, here are some things you need to do. Here are some things I need to do. Here are some things we need to change. And after time went by, it was like, okay, we need to put a deadline on this. Okay. Like if you're not going to do something by this amount of time, then I'm going to need to take some actions because it was just getting really toxic and very miserable and it was going downhill really fast. And so, yes, both of us had things that we had to work on. And I think in that moment, I realized that it wasn't just all someone else's fault. And I had contributed to the downward spiral also. And so owning my own stuff really, it was a big moment for me because I realized that I really had some things that I needed to work on and that I didn't want to bring those things into another relationship. And those things were very personal, very like quiet things that I don't go around talking about very much, but I have talked about it before. And, I had a lot of debt. And so I really wanted to change my focus around money and income and abundance. And especially because at that point I hadn't started my own business, but I wanted to. And you can't do all of that and come from a place of lack and a place from, ignorance, like, I just don't know how to do any of these things. And I don't know how to be financially, whatever. It's like I had to really put myself in check and really stop. I don't know. I just had to, that was one of the things. And the other thing was that I really needed to understand, and this kind of rolls over into the other part that I wanted to talk about, and so we'll stop them so that it's not like me pop talking the whole time. But the other one was like being more of a partner when it came to finances,
Right.
period. Because in my previous marriage, I didn't work outside the home. I didn't really understand all of that. I really wasn't. Um, it wasn't something that I was allowed to do. Really, I was at home. I was a mother and a teacher and all of that. So anyway, it was very different. So that was a big defining moment for me to like say, oh wow, there's some things that I can change. And
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know where to start. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we'll just
Uh,
start somewhere.
Even with this wall, you know, it had to come down, and you know, it was part of the process. It had to start. The whole thing is that it wasn't working anyway. You know, it
The
was really just a
fireplace wasn't working.
facade, and so that's kind of part um, of things. It wasn't working anyway. It needed to go. It was really just here in the middle of the room, and it needed to be done. And that includes the chimney on the backside. Let's not forget the other part of this enormous project, I guess. I don't even know.
Well, how were there times that you had to really stop and own your stuff? You
Oh
know,
God, yeah. Okay.
that it wasn't really just all the other person's fault
Oh sure.
and the things that when you stopped and really said, wow, yes, some of this was my fault. I was contributing to the
Yeah.
downward spiral. What, if you want to share
Yeah.
some of those things that you kind of said, okay, I don't want to bring this into another relationship. Not that you were even thinking about another relationship at the time. I just mean,
Right. No. Yeah. When when my divorce happened, I think a divorce could have happened a lot earlier, but um, I was constant, and this kind of goes into maybe I should have owned up to the idea that I was really working on myself. We talked about this in the first episode of how I was working on myself. And so maybe I wasn't giving enough attention or whatever, but the relationship was so far, it was a transactional relationship, or it was more of like we're just running a business here. We're just running up, taking care of things. And we were both, but at the beginning of my relationship with her, I wasn't doing very well financially myself. I was assistant manager at a bagel shop, and I was not making much money. But I was a hard worker, and so I think um, I was there with my stepson, who I've always called my son. It was two, and so I was able to come in and provide. Helping take care of him, help raise him. I wasn't really financially doing a lot, but I was there. I had the potential, and I was taking care of him, and so, but that grew over time into where I did finally get my act together. More of the relationship was me being there for our son, and for taking care of him and being a part of it. Our relationship faltered on the idea of us not spending that much time together. Work and career, on her end, was very important to her, and so that most of her time was spent working and taking care of things, and I was taking care of uh, our son. And so, as I say, the divorce could have happened a lot earlier, but it was almost like we were kind of on a timeline of whatever he aged out of needing, essentially what I say, me, but, needing me to be there to take care of me. Was on his own. He could take care of himself to an extent, as much as a 20-year-old could. Uh, and so, yeah, but I still had to own up to what I could work on, what I needed to work on, and where did I falter in the relationship. And but maybe I was just too focused on myself. I don't know. I can't go back and really consider what I was doing wrong, but I did try to look at it and try to figure out what it was. I thought I thought I was doing pretty well. I had
sure,
completely turned my life around, really,
right.
just not just financially, but mentally. Like I was, and when I started all of it, I was like, I want to be someone that is undeniable. I wanted her to see me and to see that I was putting in the work and that I was, doing well for myself and I was doing well financially. I mean, I'd really changed everything in that aspect of it where I was able to be kind of where we are now, where I am now. Um, and so I wasn't depending on her financially
Right.
like we had been at the beginning. Um, and I was, able to carry the load if needed. So I don't know, but I did look at it and I still kind of try to figure out what it was, but I think it was long gone well before we
Sure.
had the divorce. And I tried to, figure out what I could have done differently along the way. But, um, you can only focus on that for so long. At some point,
Mhm.
we have to move on and we have to go. But, I attempted it at least. And I feel like I just rambled on, no answer.
A little bit, but it's okay.
I kind of could go anywhere with that. There's really so much to it.
Well, my point about it is that, not that you would have been able to save the marriage you were in, because once you get out of a marriage, you
Right.
can kind of look back and say, because, okay, I mean, it just happens, right? When you get out of a marriage, people are like, well, what happened, right? Oh,
Yeah.
divorce. Oh, what happened? Especially people who haven't seen you in a long time, or
Yeah.
they don't know the ins and outs of your relationship.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, they did this, right?
Yeah.
And then you're painting yourself in such a perfect picture, right? Which,
Right.
okay, maybe some people are in a better light than others,
Right.
but everybody has something that they're doing.
Yeah. Somewhere along the way.
Yes. And maybe you're doing things because they're doing things and they're doing things because you're doing
Right.
things. And so you're feeding off of each other going downward, right? Spiraling down.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. And so, but it kind of hit me like a brick wall one day where it was kind of like, hey, you can't just continue to blame.
Yeah.
Like, you have to look at yourself. And guess what? You're happy that you're out of it. You made that choice. You're
Right.
happy that you're out of the marriage and
Yes.
you want to do something else. So what are those things? What are
Right.
those things that you would like to improve in yourself so that you don't keep calling it in, so that you don't do it again? And my whole point in saying all of this and talking about, owning your own shit, like, we all have stuff
Yeah.
and we have to own it. And one of the reasons why is if you're out there and you're trying to find someone else, but you're not fixing or healing the things that are still calling in the same thing, you're going to call in the same thing.
Right.
And so, some of that stuff we all know is like self-worth things. Like, I got to a point where I would not allow anyone to talk to me in a way that hurt my feelings,
Right.
and if they did, I would say it right away. Like, this is not okay. I won't allow it. And so that was another thing that kind of came up, is that I allowed that behavior for way too long. And I say funny things to you all the time now where I'm kind of like, don't tell me what to do, because it's like this little inner Brooks thing that happens to me, because for a long time I was told what to do and I just didn't like it. And so when you do that, and you never do it in the same way,
Right.
It's just like in a relationship, we are like, hey, what you need to do is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, don't tell me what to do, and, and it's true. I have that little feistiness that comes out.
Yeah.
So, or the other thing is you'll be saying something and I'll say, no, it's not. And I'll say that, no, the little thing. Anyway, but that's what I've meant is, like, there's times when we, like, I'm sure you didn't, like, I know that when things happened for you and your relationship and it came to an end, you were kind of like, what? And like, you didn't necessarily choose it, right? You didn't choose it to come to an end. But then when it did, you were kind of like, okay, I'm going to make the best of this.
Well, yeah. I felt like I had finished serving my purpose for her, and I was fired, is essentially kind of how I looked at it. I was like, he's 20. She doesn't need me to take care of him anymore. He's, in school. He's about to turn 21, which he did, soon after the divorce. And that's just the honest reflection of it. I mean, can only say so much about your ex-wife before it sounds like you're throwing shade, but
Right.
I
And that's
am.
what I mean.
You know, I finished serving a purpose and I was let go. You know, when you're
Right.
married to a corporate executive of a major media conglomerate, uh, you know, you're just part of a head count at some point. And I finished serving my purpose. And so I was given my walking papers, and I was quite excited about the next opportunity.
Not at
And
first. At first, it was a shock, right? I mean,
well,
I'm
yeah, I
just
mean, I kind of saw it
for
coming.
for
Yeah.
sure. I'm just saying, like for anybody else, like out there listening, like you didn't just go, "Oh, great, thanks." You know, like what the heck, you know,
Yeah.
first, and then it was a process.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the weeks leading up to it, I kind of was figuring something was going on, you know, like
Sure.
things aren't the same. Um, but I, you know, yeah, I mean, I was in shock a little bit, you know, at first. I was more scared of what to do next because I had just, and I had talked about this before too.
Right.
I didn't know what I was going to do next, you know? And
Right.
so I had some moments where I broke down and cried, you know, I broke down and cried the next day. When I went on a run, just in the middle of my run, just broke down and, um, you know, trying to process what was going on.
Right. And
Um,
what are you gonna do next?
yeah. And 2 weeks later, I was under contract for a condo in the Gulch, and I was, you know, ready to go. You
Yeah.
know,
You
I
were like,
just,
oh, okay.
but it was kind of like, you know, it was real, and I did have a hard time with it. I'm not. It's not like I, you know, hit the streets and ran around having a good time. It took some time to kind of process what was going on and what the next moves were, and yeah, and it was, and I just kind of really gave everything away. And
Right.
despite friends asking me what the hell I was thinking, not fighting for things, I was ready to go. And, you know, I've been working to make it all back. And so I can pay for chimneys and fireplaces to be removed. I could
Yes.
have bought a car with what we were
Yeah.
paying for this.
For sure.
But anyways, that's the part of it. Like it's, you know, you're going to have to tear some things down. You're going to have to rebuild, and you're going to have to reimagine and um, reimagine everything. It's a feature part of our living
Right.
room, you know, and so it's kind of important that we take our time to do something thoughtful with it. So
Yes.
we'll hopefully before too long we'll have something else behind us besides drywall.
Yes. And also, I hope we're making sense because, yes, my whole point was that you have to own your stuff. You have to kind of take away the stuff that was maybe not benefiting you or a relationship and kind of, you know, you have to rebuild that. And that's difficult. It is not easy to do. And sometimes it's a lot of trial and error and hit or miss kind of a thing because you're trying that out as you're maybe, you know, dating or with someone else. And you're like, well, I got to figure out how to do this a little different so it's healthy and beneficial to myself and to others.
And maybe finishing off my point would be to that, you know, I moved forward trying to own what I may have done wrong, and maybe I have, and I think I've probably made this clear with our relationship that I want to make sure I'm serving a purpose and doing things right, and I don't want to be dismissed or whatever for what I'm doing outside of just being a husband or being a stepfather or whatever. I want to feel appreciated for it outside of that, and of course, you make me feel that way. And I love you very much.
I love you too.
I mean a lot.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I just love you. You're so good.
Okay, stop it. Stop it. Okay, so the next thing was that that I wanted to talk about. Okay. In my previous relationship, I was a stay-at-home mom. I homeschooled and, you know, had 3 kids and then 4, right? Like there's a gap. And so and I didn't work outside the home. And so although I was not bringing income into the home, I was keeping 4 humans alive and helping them turn into and develop into amazing humans and contributing to society and really awesome people, which took everything from me. Like there was a point I just physically did not do well. I was not feeling well because it was a lot. But no. And after everything, I was the provider of the 4 kids. And yes, there was child support coming in, but there was also a lot of other things to pay for that's not covered with child support. And it was a lot for me to kind of take in and understand what it feels like to have all of that on your shoulders. And there were a lot of nights I would cry and not be able to sleep because I was scared to death of the idea of how am I going to pay rent every month? How am I going to provide for these children? How are they, how is this going to work out? It was terrifying. And I had a degree, but I didn't really have the earning power that we were used to having living with. And so, we had to cut back on a lot of things and the kids had to start, doing some things different and getting little jobs here and there if they wanted extra things. And they did, and they're amazing. But it gave me a whole other perspective that I didn't have before. And also so much more gratitude and respect and compassion, empathy, all those things about being the provider and what that means. Just like if you flipped it and somebody who had never been a stay-at-home parent had to then take care of a 5'3" and newborn and all the things all day long, all the time, and homeschooling and all of that. It is totally different feeling. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But it is extremely difficult and a lot of pressure. And sometimes you want to lose your mind. And so I was able to feel this whole other part of emotions that I'd never really experienced because it wasn't my job. And
Right.
So then when we went into our relationship, of course, I talked about this before, but it was like this huge struggle to then allow someone to come in and help me. And
Right.
because I had gotten to a point where I'm like, I'm okay, I'm doing good, I've got this, I
Yeah.
know how to do it, and I'm taking care of everybody. And now you want to come in and take care of me, help me. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to do this,
Yeah.
because I have done it for so long that, and not just the, making money part, but
Yeah.
all the other things.
Yeah. Like, I kind of remember the pause or the, the thought whenever I told you I could pick him up from school. Like, I could pick him up from school. So you're like, I never thought that
Like,
that was an
what?
option. I didn't know I have options now. Okay, great. Yeah. So
there's quite a few of those where,
yeah, and there still is. I think we're still kind of working through. Like, it's okay. I can do it.
yes,
And you're kind of letting me.
yes.
So
And
yeah,
when we have these huge projects that happen,
right.
where we're unexpectedly, and everybody has them, right? Where your car totally breaks down and you're like, oh, this will be $7,000 or something like that you just did not expect or budget in. And, and then the wall problem and like all the money that we're having to figure out with that. And then of course, like we both are kind of like when they said, well, we could rebuild it. We're kind of like,
Yeah.
what? Like the rebuild it would be more than twice as much
Yeah.
to rebuild it. No thanks, we're good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. When they told me the price to fix the fireplace, for it to work, I was like, I'll just do a fire outside.
Yeah.
I don't need a fire inside that bad.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But in those moments, I watch him, kind of go, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I have so much more compassion for that and empathy for that because I know what it takes to make the money to fix things now. Whereas before, I didn't know because I didn't have to do it.
Right.
And that sounds awful. I think that sounds really awful to me sometimes.
No, I mean,
if
you weren't allowed to, provide income, then you kind of had your hands tied on realizing what that would,
right.
the scope of it at least.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
And so it helps me. And also, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, we can buckle down. I don't have to do specific things. I'm good just hanging out at home watching a show. You know, we don't have to go out. If
And then tour dates are announced for bands, and then it's all gone.
Yeah. Like, well, I'll get a third job. No.
Right. Yeah. I think we could do a whole episode on how long it took me to move forward with getting all this work done.
True.
I have known for a year, I would say, that there was some issues with our chimney.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
No, I mean,
there were
an episode series if we go into.
Well, there were a lot of nights that you were up.
I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning, and it would slip into my head. There was step cracking at the base of the chimney outside, and it was like I would just see it in my head, and then I would just go, just stressing, like, how much is that going to cost to fix? Like, what's going to happen? And really, yeah. I mean, we could really
worry.
Stress. I mean, I was up for hours at times,
it takes up a lot of time.
And then I go to sleep at 4 or 5, finally, and then I want to get back up. And it was, a mess, but mentally. And how
does it feel now that you just faced it?
It still sucks.
But
I don't have to stress about that. I mean, new things every time we do something, but but it feels good to know that it's gone. When I open that door, I don't see the step cracking. I don't see anything, but I just see. I see the next step of the project. That's what I see. And, but I see opportunities to do other things instead of just seeing the problem. And, but golly, I mean, I could really go into probably why my blood pressure has been higher from things like just worrying about it. And, and I rightfully so, I was worried about it. I thought that the chimney was falling away or coming towards the house. So I'm thinking we're going to be sitting there watching TV or whatever, and just the chimney is going to fall into the living room. And I just hope no one gets hurt. And so, just going through those pleasurable scenarios as in the middle of the night. But anyways, that was a whole thing itself. And just the financial idea of it. I wasn't afraid of the work. I was afraid of how much is that, like the unknown, the uncertainty. And then I eventually heard someone say something and it clicked. You're going to be scared. You're already keeping yourself up at night. Why don't you just go ahead and face it and just do it scared or do it, fear, is going to, you can't let it ruin you. You have to do it anyway. And so I'm glad I did. I wish I had attacked it earlier. But I don't know. Hasn't been fun, but it's a work in progress. We get a new wall out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll find the positive somewhere.
The house is stronger because we took down the rotting wood, and now it's
what I was really
stronger wood.
What I was really worried about wasn't even the real problem. Our ceiling, the headers were completely deteriorated. There was nothing holding our roof up, or our ceiling or anything along the wall here in between. So that's great.
So,
home ownership.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good thing.
It is great.
Yes. Okay, so the last thing I want to bring up, and it kind of ties in all of the things that we're talking about, but now you're in a relationship. We're in a relationship together. We're married. And one of the things that I think we talk about pretty often is not allowing things that somebody else did, and maybe your ex, to trigger you in this relationship. For instance, if you said or did something and I behave in a way that I might have felt, I feel triggered, like that's, now it's triggering inside of me something, right? And then I do my thing that then triggers him, right? We trigger each other. And I honestly think that's a really good relationship.
What?
You know why? Because when you do that to each other, it's because you're trying to show the other person, hey, you still need to work on that.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of one of the most recent things that happened. And I don't think that, I mean, it wasn't even a really bad or huge thing, but it was something where for me, I get really protective of my kids. And so if I feel like something is, threatening them, then I kind of be like, and I say something. And then when you say something back and it reminds me of something maybe that would have really hurt my feelings before, then I get triggered. And so maybe this is making sense. Maybe it's just a bunch of code that I'm talking in, but it's a thing, right? Don't You have to remember that the person you're currently with is not your ex, right? And it's not your parents, right? Somebody who
Right.
triggers you really bad, you have to remember that. And so, but your triggers are your issues. They're not somebody else's. And it's not somebody else's job to walk on eggshells
Right.
around you so they don't trigger you.
Right.
And so when you are triggered, it's really important to kind of stop and say, whoa, what happened? Why am I reacting this way? What am I feeling? Is there a situation or an experience I can remember where I felt like this before? And that's where you want to go in and heal that part and look at the little cracks in yourself that are maybe,
Right.
you know,
Own up to it,
there.
at
Oh,
least,
yeah.
or
And that's where I was going to say,
yeah.
that's where we tie all this stuff back, right?
Right.
Is you have to own your own stuff, and you have to, we're going to have past experiences that are going to come into this relationship because we can't help it, because it comes with us. And we have to have empathy and compassion for
Right.
the other person, understanding where they're coming from and appreciating them.
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
so much that you do for me and our family that I deeply appreciate, and I appreciate that you appreciate that I appreciate them.
Right. Yeah, it's nice.
Because that's something that you didn't really have before.
Right. It's nice to hear it from you and to hear it from the kids, even. Um, just all of it. It's been great, and even we have done a really good job, I think, in the past. Whenever something has triggered something from whatever, and I know I've said these words to you before. I've been through this before, or I've done this before. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
referring back to a past relationship. Like I've done this. I know, you know, I've already felt this, and it didn't go well, and I need you to know that I know what I'm doing, and I don't want to go down that same path again, or something along that sense. And I think we've done a good job of, not always at the moment when we're kind of going through it, but afterwards talking about, I think it was, like recognizing the fact that we were triggered by something, and then talking about what was going on with it. And it makes everything a little more understandable whenever we take the time to talk about it, and to really kind of
Mm-hmm.
work through it. And it's been a real blessing to be able to do that and to have some really deep, intelligent, and heartfelt conversations with you
Mm-hmm.
about these things, and that I did not have before either. So I think that's the way it should be. You have to really own up to what you're doing, and you have to have the conversations. And I also have to see and I think I've several times caught myself like, uh, like, oh, like I think I've made this mistake before.
Yeah, for sure. I
In the
I feel
previous
that way
relationship,
too.
like I needed to, that may have been something that maybe I noticed or whatever, and I
Mm-hmm.
needed to correct it. Uh, yeah. So,
Yeah, and that, with all of that being said, communication and circling back when something happens, and if it's not resolved, and sometimes it will never really truly be all the way resolved. Sometimes it's just something that we talk about, and I just say, hey, it's just something I'm working on, and we get a little better, and we get a little better, and we get
yeah,
a little better. And there's that compassion and grace there for each other where it's like, it's okay. I know you're not talking to me. You're talking about
yeah,
stuff that happened back then or with someone else, or,
yeah,
it could even be like, parent stuff. It goes really far back
it
sometimes where it's
does.
like, wow, that really hurt. This is me. This is not you.
Right.
And 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 the reason why I'm bringing that up is because, one, sometimes I think that it definitely gets better when we talk about it. Two, you have to have the pause. You
Yeah.
can't, when emotions are really heightened and we're like, frustrated with each other, and there's kids involved or whatever. It's like, hey, let's just take a breather, go do your thing. I'll talk to you later. And I don't like talking about things at nighttime. It's never going to work out if it's at nighttime. I'm too tired. My brain can't process. Sometimes I'm just like not even there, so it's not a good time. And so, and don't talk about things when you're on your way out the door, or
Right.
gonna leave, because then it's like the other person's just left there holding the space going, okay, great, we didn't even talk about it or it didn't get
Yeah.
worked on. And then and yeah, and then don't talk about things when people are going to come over. That's a really bad time too.
Yeah.
Right, like, I mean, there's specific times when we're kind of like, okay, do you have a minute, can we talk about this?
Right.
And to always come from a place of love. Like, if you're talking to your spouse, your loved one, you want to come from a place of love, and empathy and compassion and grace and all that. You don't want to come from a place of you blaming you and I'm great.
Yeah.
Right?
I
And,
mean,
and
you do
so
tell me I'm perfect all the time.
well,
Fine. I kind of feel a little sarcasm
I'm,
in it, but I'm going to take a
I'm
compliment.
resolved. Yeah.
You said it perfect. That's all apart. That's all I heard.
I know. I know. Oh, man. Well, so that's basically it. Any thoughts?
Gosh, I have too many, and we're already at 42 minutes or something.
Okay.
So
We're definitely going to cut some of this out. So,
I feel like I
anyway.
getting cut. Takes me back to baseball tournaments. Homecoming.
You're so funny. Okay.
I'm coming back.
Well, so own your stuff. Take
Yeah.
some time to kind of, be still, listen to yourself, and what are some things that you can improve, and where, if things keep showing up, they're definitely showing up to teach you something. You're the point of origin. So you have to kind of look at yourself, feel this, right? That's what this is all about. We all have a this that we have to work on. And approaching each other with compassion and grace and empathy, trying to understand where the other person's coming from, and a lot of gratitude for the way that your partner, the people in your life, your loved ones show up for you. And then just remember that your triggers are yours,
Right.
and that triggers are there to teach us something that still is not healed, and that is kind of festering up. And there are many tools that we have that are at our fingertips, neurofeedback, EMDR, sound therapy, and the emotion code, things like that, the belief code. They're great. They can definitely help you reach in there and kind of help you get past those little blocks that are stopping you from healing. So I hope that's been helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul always has helpful and useful things.
You're so hot.
Anyway, this is definitely getting cut.
What?
All right. All right. Take care. We'll talk to you soon, and heal this.